Operation Matador. The hunt for Europe's luxury car theft. Ring prologue. A missing Mercedes in Malaga. The sun-drenched streets of Malaga, Spain's jewel on the Costa del Sol, have long attracted tourists seeking Mediterranean warmth and luxury. In the late summer of 2022, however, the city's car rental agencies began noticing a disturbing pattern. High-end vehicles, Mercedes-Benz sedans, BMW SUVs, sleek Autos wary disappearing without a trace. What began as isolated incidents soon revealed itself as something far more sinister. The work of a sophisticated international criminal network that would eventually span 10 countries and involve over 50 criminals. This is the story of Operation Matador, a year-and-a-half-long investigation that would expose one of Europe's most elaborate luxury car theft rings. Part 1. The first threads. The pattern emerges in the autumn of 2022. Maria Gonzalez, the operations manager at a prominent car rental company in Malaga, sat in her office reviewing the month's inventory reports. Something didn't add up. 3 luxury vehicles had failed to return from rental agreements in the past 6 weeks. Each had been rented by different customers, each with apparently legitimate documentation, and each had simply vanished. At first, Gonzalez assumed these were cases of individual fraud or customers extending rentals without permission. But when she reached out to other rental companies in the area, she discovered she wasn't alone. Across Malaga and the surrounding Costa del Sol region, prestigious rental firms were experiencing similar losses. Mercedes-Benz V-Class vehicles seemed particularly targeted, along with high-end BMW and Auto models. The rental agreements appeared legitimate on the surface: proper identification, valid credit cards, signed contracts, but the cars never came back. By the time Gonzalez filed her report with the Spanish National Police, the missing vehicles numbered in dozens across the region. The estimated value exceeded several million euros. What rental company managers cynically dismissed as unfortunate business losses was, in reality, the visible tip of a criminal enterprise that stretched from the sunny coasts of Spain to the industrial cities of Ukraine. The Spanish investigation begins. The Spanish National Police assigned the case to their specialized auto theft unit, working under Investigative Court No. 1 in Malaga and the Public Prosecutor's Office. Detective Inspector Carlos Ramirez led the investigation. A 20-year veteran with experience in organized crime, Ramirez immediately recognized the hallmarks of professional criminal activity. These weren't opportunistic thefts, Ramirez would later explain in court documents. The selection of vehicles, the quality of the documentation, the timing, everything pointed to a well-organized operation with significant resources. The investigative team began pulling together the rental agreements, examining the identification documents, tracking credit card payments, and reviewing security footage from rental offices. What they discovered was both ingenious and disturbing. The people renting the vehicles weren't using stolen identities in the traditional sense. The passports and driving licenses were real, belonging to actual individuals, primarily Ukrainian citizens. But these weren't master criminals or experienced car thieves. They were ordinary people, often vulnerable, sometimes desperately poor, being used as unwitting pawns in a much larger game. The recruitment pipeline. As the Spanish investigators dug deeper, a pattern emerged that would prove crucial to understanding the interior operation. The renters were Ukrainian citizens, many displaced by economic hardship or the geopolitical turmoil affecting their homeland. They were approached by recruiters with an offer that seemed too good to refuse: an all-expenses-paid trip to Spain or France, spending money in the simple task: rent a luxury car for a few days. The recruiters told these vulnerable individuals that they were working for a legitimate car export business. Their job was simply to rent vehicles that would be photographed for marketing purposes, or test-driven by potential buyers, or used for short-term corporate rentals. The pitch was professional, complete with business cards, contracts, and wire transfers. To people struggling to make ends meet, the offer of €500, €1,000 for a few days' work seemed like a legitimate opportunity. Anastasia K., a 34-year-old teacher from Kyiv whose case would later become part of the evidence in Operation Matador, described her experience. They approached me through a friend who had done it before. They showed me contracts, explained it was a car export business. They paid for my flight to Barcelona, booked me on a hotel. I thought it was a real job. I had no idea I was helping criminals steal cars. The recruiters themselves, mid-level operatives in the criminal network, handled every detail. They purchased airline tickets, booked hotel rooms, provided rental car reservations, and even scripted what their interns should say if asked questions. The operation was meticulously planned to appear legitimate at every stage. Following the cars, while the Spanish police investigated the rental side of the operation, they also needed to track where the stolen vehicles were going. This proved more challenging than anticipated. The cars seemed to simply vanish on set they left the rental lots. The breakthrough came when Spanish investigators, working with Europol's vehicle crime unit, began analyzing GPS data from some of the stolen vehicles. Most modern luxury cars are equipped with multiple tracking systems, manufacturer GPS, telematic systems, and, in rental cars, additional tracking devices. The criminals knew this, and disabling these systems was a crucial part of their operation. The GPS trails showed the stolen vehicles following remarkably similar routes. From Spain, they traveled northeast through France, entering Germany through various border crossings. From there, the trails typically led to one of several cities, Essen and Osnabrück in Germany, various locations in Poland, and ultimately Lithuania. In December 2022, Spanish authorities shared their findings with Europol, the European Union's law enforcement agency headquartered in The Hague, Netherlands. What had started as a Spanish investigation was about to become an international operation. Part 2. The network revealed Europol takes the lead. Europol's involvement transformed the investigation. The agency's vehicle crime unit had been tracking similar patterns across Europe: luxury rental cars disappearing in France, Germany reporting suspicious vehicle registration attempts, Polish border guards finding stolen vehicles. When the Spanish investigation landed on their desks, analysts at Europol recognized they were looking at a single, highly organized criminal network operating across the continent. In January 2023, Europol formed an operational task force, bringing together investigators from Spain, France, Poland, Ukraine, Germany, and Latvia. The European Union Agency for Criminal Justice Cooperation, Eurojust, joined to coordinate the judicial aspects of what was becoming a massive international investigation. The operation was given a coding name, Matador. The name was fitting. In Spanish tradition, a matador must display skill, courage, and precise timing to succeed. The same would be required of the international law enforcement team about to take on one of Europe's most sophisticated car theft networks. Mapping the criminal organization. Over the course of 2023, the Matador Task Force meticulously reconstructed the criminal organization's structure and operations. What emerged was a picture of a sophisticated enterprise with clear divisions of labor, multiple operational cells, and a command structure that spanned from Western Europe to Ukraine. The organization operated in distinct layers. The leadership level. At the top was a high-value target, HVT, a designation Europol reserves for the most dangerous and sophisticated criminals. This individual, whose identity would only be revealed during theftal arrests, coordinated the entire operation from Ukraine. He maintained contact with other criminal organizations specializing in vehicle theft, suggesting the network was part of a broader criminal ecosystem. The financial branch. Based primarily in Spain, this division handled the money. They financed their recruitment operations, paid for flights and hotels, provided funds for rental deposits, and most importantly, received and laundered the proceeds from selling the stolen vehicles. Investigators tracked wire transfers, cryptocurrency transactions, and cash movements totaling millions of euros. The recruitment division. Operating primarily in Ukraine, this branch identified and recruited the vulnerable individuals who would actually rent the cars. They maintained a steady pipeline of recruits, ensuring a constant supply of new faces that wouldn't raise suspicion with rental agencies. The transport cell. After vehicles were rented and handed over, specialized drivers took control. These individuals were experienced in cross-border movement, knew which border crossings had minimal scrutiny, and understood how to avoid detection. They transported vehicles from Spain and France to processing locations in Germany, Poland, and Lithuania. The processing division. This was where the real technical expertise came in. Located in Lithuania, Germany, and Poland, Specialized mechanics ran what were essentially chop shops for the digital age. Their job wasn't to dismantle cars for parts, but to transform stolen rental vehicles into seemingly legitimate used cars ready for export. The forging workshop. Perhaps the most sophisticated element of the operation, this division produced high-quality forged documents. They created fake registration certificates, falsified vehicle history reports, manufactured license plates, and even produced counterfeit vehicle identification number (VIN) plates. The processing operation. The heart of the criminal operation lay in the processing centers scattered across Central Europe. When a stolen vehicle arrived, typically within 48 to 72 hours of being rented, it underwent a systematic transformation. First, all tracking devices were disabled. The criminals employed technical specialists who understood modern vehicle electronics. They located and disabled manufactured GPS systems, telematics modules, and rental company tracking devices. This required sophisticated knowledge of vehicle computer systems and, in many cases, specialized software to reprogram vehicle electronics. Next came the physical modifications. Original license plates were removed and replaced with forgeries. VIN plates, the metal tags that identify a vehicle, were replaced with plates bearing different numbers. In some cases, additional numbered components like engine blocks were tampered with to match the falsified documentation. The criminals maintained workshops equipped with professional metalworking tools, capable of embossing registration stickers and manufacturing license plates that were nearly indistinguishable from legitimate ones. When Lithuanian police would eventually raid these locations in May 2024, they would find industrial-grade embossing equipment, presses, raw materials for producing plates, and hundreds of blank registration tickets. The forged documentation was equally impressive. The criminals produced fake purchase invoices showing the vehicle had been legitimately bought, falsified registration certificates, and even created elaborate backstories for the vehicle's fake service records, insurance documents, and ownership histories. The export network once processed, the vehicles were ready for export outside the European Union. The criminal organization had established relationships with buyers and dealers in several key markets. The United Kingdom. Before and after Brexit, the UK represented a major market for high-end European vehicles. The criminals exploited the complexity of post-Brexit vehicle registration rules to introduce stolen cars into the British market. The United Arab Emirates, Dubai's luxury car market, known for its appetite for high-end European vehicles, provided another lucrative outlet. Stolen vehicles were shipped through various European ports, typically Antwerp and Belgium, hidden among legitimate car exports. Eastern European markets. Countries in Eastern Europe and Central Asia also absorbed many of the stolen vehicles, particularly those that might be more difficult to export further due to their tracking history. The criminal organization demonstrated remarkable sophistication in understanding and exploiting international vehicle registration systems. They knew which countries had less stringent import requirements, which documentation would satisfy customs authorities, and how to navigate the bureaucratic complexities of international car trade. The scale of the operation. By mid-2023, the Matador task force had documented the theft of at least 36 high-end vehicles through this network, though investigators believe the actual number was significantly higher. The confirmed thefts alone represented millions of euros in losses. The vehicles targeted were consistently high value. Mercedes-Benz V-Class vans, popular with luxury transportation services, BMW X5 and X7 SUVs, Audi e-tron electric vehicles, high-end sedans from Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. The choice of vehicles wasn't random. These models commanded high prices in international markets, were commonly available at rental agencies, and didn't attract unusual attention when driven across borders. But beyond the financial cost, the operation represented something more troubling: the exploitation of vulnerable people, the corruption of legitimate businesses, and the creation of a criminal infrastructure that could be adapted to other illegal activities. Part 3. The investigation deepens technical surveillance. As 2023 progressed, the Matador task force employed increasingly sophisticated investigative techniques. The challenge was enormous. How do you track a criminal network operating across 6 countries, involving dozens of individuals with operations constantly evolving? The task force established dedicated analytical cells at Europol headquarters in The Hague. Intelligence analysts from 6 countries worked side by side, sharing information in real time, building comprehensive intelligence packages that mapped the network structure, identified key players, and tracked the flow of vehicles and money. Telecommunications intercepts proved crucial. With proper judicial authorization, investigators monitored phone calls and messaging between suspected network members. The conversations revealed the operational details: how recruits were selected, when vehicles would be rented, where they would be processed, and how payments were handled. Financial investigators tracked money flows across Europe. The organization used a combination of traditional wire transfers, cash payments, and increasingly, cryptocurrency transactions. Forensic accountants worked to untangle the complex financial web, identifying bank accounts, cryptocurrency wallets, and cash movement patterns. Physical surveillance teams in multiple countries tracked suspected network members. Polish border guards began flagging certain individuals and vehicles. German police maintained watch on suspected processing locations. Ukrainian investigators identified recruitment centers and safe houses used by the organization. The Joint Investigation Team in March 2024, a crucial milestone was reached. With the support and funding of Eurojust, authorities from France, Spain, and Ukraine established a formal Joint Investigation Team JIT. This legal framework allowed for unprecedented cooperation in gathering evidence, conducting searches, and pursuing prosecutions. The JIT held 2 major coordination meetings in spring 2024, bringing together prosecutors and investigators from all participating countries. These meetings, some held in person and others virtually, covered every aspect of the planned operation: legal authorities, tactical coordination, evidence handling, and the timing of arrests. The challenge wasn't just logistical but also legal. Each country had different laws regarding vehicle theft, fraud, and organized crime. Evidence gathered in one jurisdiction needed to be admissible in others. Arrest warrants had to be coordinated across multiple legal systems. The Eurojust Coordination Center worked tirelessly to ensure all legal requirements were met. Intelligence breakthroughs. By April 2024, the investigation had identified specific individuals at each level of the organization. The task force knew who the recruiters were, had identified the main leadership, tracked the financial operators, and located several processing facilities. A major breakthrough came when Ukrainian investigators infiltrated the recruitment operation. By placing an undercover operative among potential recruits, they gained first-hand knowledge of how the system worked. The undercover agent was recruited, flown to France, provided with documents and instructions, and taken through the entire process of renting a vehicle. The experience provided invaluable insight into the organization's MIDs and security protocols. Simultaneously, German investigators had identified key processing locations. Through a combination of surveillance, informant information, and analysis of vehicle movement patterns, they located workshops in Essen and Osnabrück, where stolen vehicles were being processed. Lithuanian authorities, building on information from their German counterparts, discovered the main document forging operation. The workshop was located in an industrial area, disguised as a legitimate auto repair business. Surveillance revealed a steady stream of vehicles entering and leaving, often with different license plates on exit than on entry. Perhaps most significantly, investigators identified the high-value target, the organization's leader. A Russian national based in Ukraine, he directed the entire operation while maintaining connections to other criminal networks throughout Europe. His arrest would become a primary objective of the final operation. The decision to strike. By early May 2024, the Matador task force faced a critical decision. They had gathered extensive evidence, identified key suspects, and located multiple facilities. But criminal investigations always involve a risk calculation. Wait longer to gather more evidence, or act now before the network realizes it's under surveillance. Several factors pushed toward action. First, there were indications that some network members had become suspicious. Communications suggested they were considering changing their methods or going dormant for a period. Second, the investigation had reached a point where further surveillance was unlikely to significantly input the evidence. Third, and perhaps most importantly, The organization was continuing to operate. More vehicles were being stolen. More vulnerable people were being exploited, and more money was flowing into criminal hands. On May 10, 2024, at a secure facility in Madrid, the final operational meeting took place. Representatives from all participating countries, Europol coordinators, and Eurojust prosecutors gathered to plan what would be called Action Day. The plan was ambitious. Simultaneous operations in Spain, France, Germany, Latvia, Poland, and Ukraine. Over 70 locations would be searched. 13 individuals would be arrested. Multiple vehicles, documentation, equipment, and cash would be seized. The entire operation would need to be coordinated down to the minute to prevent suspects from warning each other. The date was set, May 21, 2024. Action Day, Part 4. Action Day dawn raids across Europe. As the sun rose across Europe on May 21, 2024, hundreds of law enforcement officers were already in position. From the Mediterranean coast of Spain to the industrial cities of Ukraine, teams prepared to strike simultaneous at 6 a.m. Central European Time. In Malaga, Spain, an operational center had been established at police headquarters. This would serve as the nerve center for the entire operation, with real-time communication links to teams across Europe and to the Judicial Coordination Center that Eurojust had established. At Europol headquarters in The Hague, another coordination center buzzed with activity. Large screens displayed maps of Europe with markers indicating each operation location. Radio channels connected teams across the continent. Intelligence analysts stood ready to provide real-time support as the operation unfolded. Spain. Following the money in Spain, teams targeted the financial operation. On the Costa del Sol, heavily armed officers from the Guardia Civil's specialized organized crime unit approached a luxury villa in La Nucia. Inside, they arrested a Russian national believed to be responsible for laundering the proceeds from stolen vehicle sales. The residents yielded computers, financial records, and over 50,000 euros in cash. In Marbella, another Russian suspect was arrested. This individual had allegedly used a German rental company with Costa del Sol branches as a front for disposing of stolen vehicles. The sophistication of this arrangement revealed how deeply the criminal organization had penetrated legitimate businesses. At a third location in Malaga, police arrested one of the suspected money handlers, finding evidence of cryptocurrency transactions worth approximately 1 million euros spread across multiple digital wallets and platforms. This financial trail would prove crucial for later prosecutions. France. The transit hub France had served as a major rental location for the organization, particularly in the Côte d'Azur region around Nice and Grasse. French National Gendarmerie units, working under the Central Office Against Roving Crime (OCDLI), executed searches at multiple locations. 2 French nationals were arrested, suspected of serving as intermediaries in the transport chain. Their role was to receive stolen vehicles from renters and arrange onward transportation to processing centers in Germany and Poland. Searches of their properties uncovered a treasure trove of evidence: multiple sets of license plates, blank registration documents, contact lists, and communications equipment. One location contained detailed logbooks recording vehicle movements, rental dates, and processing schedules, essentially the operational records of an entire branch of the criminal enterprise. Germany. The processing centers. German police operations focused on the processing facilities. In Essen, an industrial warehouse that ostensibly operated as an auto repair shop was raided by heavily armed police units. Inside, officers found a fully equipped workshop with specialized tools for disabling GPS systems, equipment for manufacturing license plates, and 3 luxury vehicles in various stages of processing. In Osnabrück, another workshop was raided, yielding similar findings. The technical sophistication of these operations was remarkable. The criminals employed individuals with legitimate automotive training who had turned their skills to illegal purposes. Poland and Latvia. The distribution network. Polish border guards and police units targeted several locations suspected of serving as temporary holding facilities for stolen vehicles awaiting export. Multiple vehicles were recovered, along with documentation and communications equipment. In Latvia, teams searched locations connected to the organization's activities in the Baltic region. While no arrests were made in Latvia during the action day, the searches provided additional evidence of the network's European reach. Lithuania. The forgery operation Lithuanian police achieved one of the operation's most significant successes. Raids in multiple Lithuanian cities uncovered the heart of the document forgery operation. In a metal processing workshop, officers found industrial embossing tools, raw materials for producing vehicle number plates, forged registration stickers, and hundreds of blank documents. 2 Lithuanian nationals were arrested, identified as the masterminds behind the document forgery operation. The quality of their work was professional grade. The forged documents were so convincing that they had repeatedly passed inspection by customs authorities and vehicle registration offices. Ukraine. Dismantling the command structure, the most complex and extensive operations took place in Ukraine. Over 50 separate searches were conducted in Kyiv, Lviv, Vinnytsia, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Ukrainian National Police, working under the procedural guidance of the Office of the Prosecutor General, targeted the recruitment operation and, most significantly, the organization's leadership. In a coordinated dawn raid in Kyiv, Ukrainian special forces arrested the high-value target, the Russian national who had directed the entire operation. The arrest took place at an upscale apartment where he had been living under an assumed identity. The searches in Ukraine revealed the extent of the recruitment operation. Offices that appeared to operate as legitimate employment agencies were, in reality, fronts for recruiting vulnerable individuals into the car theft team. Investigators seized computers containing databases of potential recruits, payment records, travel arrangements, and communications with other branches of the organization. 3 Ukrainian nationals were arrested for their roles in recruitment and logistics. Interviews with these individuals would later provide crucial testimony about how the organization operated. The coordinated seizures by midday on May 21st. The results were tallied. 13 individuals arrested. 1 Armenian, 1 Lithuanian, 2 French, 6 Russian, and 3 Ukrainian nationals. Over 70 locations searched across 6 countries. 6 luxury vehicles seized, with several more recovered in subsequent operations. Forged documentation, license plates, and manufacturing equipment confiscated. 132,165 euros in cash. Seized computers, phones, and communications equipment containing crucial evidence. Detailed financial records, including cryptocurrency wallet information. But perhaps more significantly, the coordinated action had effectively decapitated the organization. The leadership was in custody. The financial operation was exposed. The processing facilities were shut down, and the recruitment pipeline was severed. Part 5. The aftermath and trials and media impact in the days following Action Day. The scale of Operation Matador's success became clear. The simultaneous nature of the raids had prevented suspects from warning each other or destroying evidence. The careful coordination between countries meant that evidence gathered in one jurisdiction could immediately be shared with others. The arrested individuals faced a range of charges depending on their roles and their countries. Legal systems: fraud and misappropriation, forgery and falsification of documents, money laundering, participation in organized crime. Vehicle theft under European law, particularly for cases involving organized crime, the penalties were severe. First-degree racketeering and money laundering carried potential sentences of up to 20 years in prison in some jurisdictions. The victims speak as the case developed. Investigators tracked down many of the vulnerable individuals who had been recruited to rent the vehicles. Their stories painted a heartbreaking picture of exploitation. Dmitry P., a 28-year-old construction worker from Lviv, described how he had lost his job during economic turmoil in Ukraine. A friend told me about this opportunity to make easy money. They were very professional, very convincing. They paid for everything, gave me spending money. I thought I was working for a legitimate business exporting cars to wealthy buyers. When I found out I had helped criminals, I felt sick. Many of these individuals faced potential prosecution themselves, as they had technically committed fraud by renting vehicles they intended not to return. However, prosecutors in most countries recognized them as victims of exploitation rather than criminals. Most received suspended sentences or were offered immunity in exchange for testimony against the organization's leaders. The rental companies that had lost vehicles also welcomed the operation's success. though they recognized that their losses would never be fully recovered. Many of the stolen vehicles had already been exported and sold, making recovery impossible. Continuing investigations. Even as the primary suspects faced prosecution, the investigation continued. The high-value target had maintained contacts with other criminal organizations specializing in vehicle theft. Information seized during raids provided leads to additional networks operating across Europe. In October 2024, Ukrainian investigators conducted additional searches in several regions, targeting network members who had avoided arrest in May. These operations, still under the Operation Matador umbrella, led to further seizures of evidence and the identification of additional suspects. Europol indicated that the intelligence gathered during Operation Matador was being used to target other vehicle theft networks. The methods, contexts, and operational patterns revealed by the investigation provided aid and plate for understanding how sophisticated car theft rings operate in the modern era. The legal proceedings. The prosecution of Operation Matador suspects proceeded through multiple jurisdictions. Spain, as the initiating country, took the lead in prosecuting the financial operators arrested on Spanish territory. The two Russian nationals arrested in Marbella and La Nucia faced charges of money laundering, fraud, and participation in organized crime. In France, the two French nationals arrested faced prosecution for their roles in receiving and transporting stolen vehicles. Their detailed logbooks provided prosecutors with documentary evidence of dozens of vehicle thefts. Germany and Lithuania pursued prosecutions for the processing and forgery operations. The technical evidence seized from the workshops, the specialized equipment, the forged documents, the vehicles in various stages of processing provided compelling proof of systematic criminal activity. The most complex legal proceedings took place in Ukraine, where the high-value target and other leadership figures faced prosecution. Ukrainian authorities charged them with organizing a criminal enterprise, fraud, and money laundering. The case was strengthened by extensive electronic evidence, financial records, and testimony from cooperating witnesses. International cooperation as a model operation. Matador was widely hailed as a successful example of international law enforcement cooperation. The case demonstrated several best practices that would influence future cross-border investigations. Early information sharing. Spanish authorities' decision to quickly share their findings with Europol allowed international dimension of the case to be recognized early. Formal legal framework. The establishment of a joint investigation team through Eurojust provided a solid legal foundation for evidence gathering and prosecution across multiple jurisdictions. Coordination centers. The dual coordination approach, an operational center for police work and a judicial center for legal matters, ensured both tactical and legal aspects were properly managed. Intelligence-led approach. Rather than rushing to make arrests, investigators spent 18 months building a comprehensive intelligence picture of the entire network. Simultaneous action. The coordinated timing of raids prevented suspects from destroying evidence or fleeing, maximizing the operation's effectiveness. At a press conference in Brussels, Europol DIS Director Catherine de Ball praised the operation. Operation Matador demonstrates that when European law enforcement agencies work together, no criminal network is beyond our reach. These criminals thought they could operate across borders with impunity. They were wrong. Part 6. Understanding the criminal innovation. The evolution of vehicle theft. Operation Matador illuminated how vehicle theft had evolved in the modern era. Traditional car theft, breaking into a vehicle, hot-wiring the ignition, and driving away had become increasingly difficult with modern security systems. Today's high-end vehicles feature sophisticated immobilizers, encrypted key fobs, and multiple layers of electronic security. The criminal network exposed by Operation Matador had adapted to this reality. Rather than trying to defeat advanced security systems, they simply rented vehicles with legitimate keys and documentation. This rent-to-steal model represented a significant evolution in vehicle crime. Exploiting vulnerabilities. The operation revealed several vulnerabilities in legitimate systems. Trust-based rental systems. Rental agencies rely on identity verification and credit checks, but sophisticated criminals could satisfy these requirements using real identities of recruited individuals. Cross-border complexity. The European Union's open borders and complex vehicle registration systems across different countries created opportunities for criminals to exploit gaps in coordination. GPS limitations. While modern vehicles have tracking systems, determined criminals with technical expertise could disable them. The temporary nature of tracking meant that if a vehicle went dark quickly enough, it became very difficult to recover. Document verification challenges. The forgery operation demonstrated how difficult it can be for customs and registration authorities to verify documentation, especially when processing vehicles from different countries with varying document formats. The human element perhaps most troubling was the organization's exploitation of vulnerable people. By recruiting individuals in difficult economic circumstances, offering them what appeared to be legitimate work, and insulating them from knowledge of the criminal nature of their actions, the network created a buffer between its leadership and the actual theft. This human exploitation wasn't incidental to the scheme, it was central to its success. Using real people with genuine documents made the rentals appear legitimate. The recruiters carefully selected individuals who were unlikely to question the arrangement or understand its illegal nature until it was too late. Financial innovation. The money laundering aspects of the operation also demonstrated criminal innovation. The network used a sophisticated combination of traditional and modern financial methods. Traditional wire transfers moved money across borders through legitimate banking systems, disguised as business transactions. Cash payments, while old-fashioned, remained effective for certain transactions, particularly in recruitment. Cryptocurrency provided a new avenue for international money movement that was harder for authorities to track. The discovery of approximately €1 million in cryptocurrency across multiple wallets highlighted how criminal organizations were adapting to digital currencies. The pseudo-anonymous nature of many cryptocurrencies made attractive for criminal finance, though investigators were increasingly able to trace these transactions with specialized analytical tools. Part 7. Broader implications. The luxury car theft epidemic. Operation Matador was one of several major operations against luxury vehicle theft rings in Europe. During 2024, the problem had reached epidemic proportions, with estimates suggesting thousands of high-end vehicles were being stolen across Europe annually. A separate operation in October 2024 targeted a Moldovan-led criminal network that had stolen over 100 luxury hybrid cars across Italy, Spain, and Belgium. That network, similar to the Operation Matador organization, used sophisticated equipment to open cars, neutralize alarms and GPS systems, and create high-quality facade documentation. These parallel operations suggested that the methods exposed in Operation Matador were unique, which represented a broader trend in organized vehicle crime. Criminal networks were increasingly professional, technologically sophisticated, and internationally organized. Economic impact. The financial impact of luxury vehicle theft extends far beyond the value of stolen cars. Rental companies face direct losses, but also increased insurance premiums and decreased customer confidence. Insurance companies pass along costs through higher premiums for all customers. Manufacturers invest millions in security features that criminals work to defeat. Perhaps more significantly, the existence of lucrative international markets for stolen vehicles creates ongoing criminal demand. As long as buyers in countries with less stringent import controls are willing to purchase vehicles without asking questions, criminal networks will continue to supply them. The technology arms race. Operation Matador highlighted an ongoing technological arms race between vehicle security and criminal capability. Modern cars feature sophisticated security systems, but criminals continually develop new methods to defeat them. The processing facilities discovered during Operation Matador contained specialized equipment and software for disabling GPS systems and reprogramming vehicle electronics. This required significant technical knowledge and investment, suggesting the involvement of individuals with legitimate automotive engineering backgrounds who had turned their skills to criminal purposes. This raises broader questions about the security of modern connected vehicles. As cars become increasingly computer and networked, they become vulnerable to new forms of electronic attack. The criminals in Operation Matador were disabling tracking systems, but future criminals might exploit vehicle connectivity in even more sophisticated ways. The refugee and migration dimension. The exploitation of Ukrainian citizens by the Operation Matador network occurred against the backdrop of further displacement and economic hardship. While this particular network predated the major refugee crisis, it highlighted how criminal organizations exploit vulnerable populations. The recruitment methods used offering legitimate-seeming work to people in difficult economic circumstances are common across various forms of organized crime, from human trafficking to drug smuggling. Operation Matador demonstrated the need for comprehensive approaches that address not just the criminal networks themselves but also the vulnerabilities they exploit. Part 8. Lessons and Future Directions. What Operation Matador taught law enforcement. The success of Operation Matador provided several important lessons for international law enforcement. Patience pays off. The 18-month investigation allowed authorities to fully map the network rather than making premature arrests that might have allowed leaders to escape. Follow the money. Financial investigation proved crucial to understanding the network structure and identifying leadership. Technology matters. From cryptocurrency tracking to GPS analysis to telecommunications intercepts, sophisticated technical capabilities were essential. International cooperation works. The formal structures provided by Europol and Eurojust enabled coordination that would have been impossible through informal bilateral cooperation. Address the whole system by targeting not just the thieves but also the processing facilities, the financial and the recruitment infrastructure. The operation dismantled the entire criminal ecosystem. Remaining challenges. Despite its success, Operation Matador also highlighted challenges that remain. International markets. As long as lucrative markets exist for stolen vehicles in countries with less stringent import controls, there will be incentive for theft. Cryptocurrency tracking. While investigators made progress in tracing cryptocurrency transactions, these financial systems still provide advantages for criminals. Vulnerability exploitation. Addressing the exploitation of vulnerable people requires not just law enforcement, but also social and economic policies that reduce desperation. Technology evolution. As vehicle technology continues to evolve, so will criminal methods. Law enforcement must stay ahead of these developments. Limited resources. International investigations like Operation Matador require significant resources, personnel, technology, time that are always in limited supply. Policy implications. The case suggested several policy areas that merit attention. Vehicle registration harmonization. Standardizing and linking vehicle registration systems across countries could make it harder to introduce stolen vehicles under false documentation. Rental industry standards. Implementing enhanced verification procedures for high-value vehicle rentals, particularly for international renters, might prevent some thefts. GPS and tracking standards. Mandating more robust tracking systems that are harder to disable could make stolen vehicles easier to recover. Import controls. Strengthening verification requirements for imported vehicles could reduce international marks for stolen cars. Cryptocurrency regulation. Developing better frameworks for tracking and regulating cryptocurrency transactions could reduce their utility for money laundering. The human cost. Beyond statistics and policy discussions, Operation Matador revealed real human costs. Victims included not just the rental companies and insurers who lost money, but also the vulnerable Ukrainian recruits who found themselves unwitting participants in criminal activity, some facing persecution, all dealing with the psychological impact of having been exploited. The legitimate workers in the automotive industry whose skills and knowledge were appropriated for criminal purposes, tarnishing their professions. The broader community affected by organized crime, which uses proceeds from operations like vehicle theft to fund other illegal activities. Understanding these human dimensions is crucial for developing comprehensive approaches that address not just the criminal acts, but also their broader social impact. Part 9. The continuing story. Ongoing prosecutions. As of late 2024, prosecutions related to Operation Matador continue across multiple jurisdictions. The complexity of the case, involving 6 countries, over 50 suspects, and thousands of pieces of evidence, means legal proceedings will continue for years. The high-value target arrested in Ukraine faces the most serious charges, including organizing a criminal enterprise and directing international fraud. His trial, expected to begin in 2025, will likely set precedents for how Ukrainian courts handle complex international criminal cases. In Spain, the financial operators arrested in May 2024 entered not guilty pleas. with their defense attorneys arguing that legitimate business transactions were being misconstrued as money laundering. Prosecutors counter with detailed financial analysis, showing the clear criminal origin of funds and the deliberate structuring of transactions to avoid detection. The Lithuanian document forgers pleaded guilty in exchange for reduced sentences, and their testimony provided crucial evidence about the technical aspects of the forgery operation. Their cooperation also helped identify additional network members who had not been arrested during action day. Additional arrests and recoveries. The intelligence gathered during Operation Matador continued to yield results. In August 2024, Spanish policy arrested 2 additional suspects believed to be mid-level coordinators in the transport network. Belgian authorities, acting on information from Operation Matador, intercepted a shipment of luxury vehicles bound for Dubai and discovered that 3 of them had been stolen using similar methods to those employed by the network. By December 2024, authorities had recovered a total of 12 stolen vehicles. Though this represented only a fraction of the 36-plus vehicles confirmed stolen by the network, many of the stolen cars had already been sold and exported beyond recovery. The intelligence legacy, perhaps Operation Matador's most lasting impact, lies in the intelligence it generated. The extensive documentations seized during the raids, including computers, phones, financial records, and communication session, provided a detailed picture of how modern vehicle theft networks operate. Europol created a comprehensive intelligence package based on Operation Matador findings, which was distributed to law enforcement agencies across Europe. This package included modus operandi analysis, detailed descriptions of the rent-to-steal method and how criminals recruit, transport, process, and export stolen vehicles. Technical indicators, information about the tools and techniques used to disable tracking systems and forge documents. Financial patterns, analysis of money laundering methods, including cryptocurrency usage, that can help identify similar criminal networks. Network structure, understanding of how these organizations typically structure themselves, helping investigators recognize similar patterns in other cases. This intelligence is already being used. In November 2024, Polish authorities disrupted another vehicle theft network based on patterns they recognized from the Operation Matador intelligence package. Training and capacity building. The success of Operation Matador led to the development of specialized training programs. Europol, in cooperation with participating national agencies, created a course on investigating international vehicle theft networks. The training covers recognizing rent-to-steal schemes, international coordination mechanisms, technical methods for tracking vehicles and financial flows, interviewing and identifying recruited victims, document forgery detection. By early 2025, over 200 law enforcement officers from 15 European countries had completed this training, increasing the collective capacity to combat similar criminal networks. Part 10. The broader context. Vehicle theft in a globalized world. Operation Matador occurred within a broader context of transnational organized crime adapting to globalization. The free movement of goods, services, and people within the European Union, while enormously beneficial economically and socially, also creates opportunities for criminals. The vehicle theft network exploited several aspects of globalization. Open borders. The Schengen area allows movement across most of Europe without border checks, making it easy to transport stolen vehicles from Spain to Lithuania without inspection. International markets. Global demand for luxury. European vehicles creates buyers willing to purchase cars with questionable provenance. Digital finance. Modern financial systems enable instant international money transfers, while cryptocurrency additional anonymity. Communications technology. Encrypted messaging apps and secure communications allow criminal networks to coordinate across vast distances. Displacement and migration. Economic inequality and instability create pools of vulnerable people that criminal networks can exploit for recruitment. International police cooperation, real-time communications, shared databases, and coordinated judicial frameworks made the investigation possible. Operation Taken. October 2024. Targeted a Moldovan-led network that stole over 100 luxury hybrid cars across Italy, Spain, and Belgium. Operation Key Catch. September 2024. Focused on a network stealing vehicles in the United Kingdom using sophisticated key programming devices, then exporting them to Eastern Europe. These parallel operations suggest that Operation Matador exposed just one network among many engaged in similar activities. The rent-to-steal method, while perhaps most sophisticated in the Matador case, appears to be known and used by other criminal organizations. The insurance industry response. The insurance industry has taken note of Operation Matador and similar cases. Major insurers are reevaluating their policies for rental companies and high-value vehicles. Some changes being implemented include enhanced verification requirements. Insurers are requiring rental companies to implement more stringent identity verification, particularly for high-value vehicles and international renters. Premium adjustments. Insurance costs for luxury rental fleets have increased significantly, particularly in regions identified as high risk for theft. These industry changes, while adding costs and complexity, may help prevent future thefts. However, they also raise questions about balancing security with customer convenience and privacy. The rental industry's evolution. The rental car industry, particularly the luxury segment, has been forced to adapt. Companies affected by Operation Matador and similar thefts have implemented new procedures. Background checks. Enhanced background checks, particularly for international renters, are becoming standard for luxury vehicles. Real-time monitoring. Sophisticated monitoring systems track not just vehicle location, but also unusual movement patterns that might indicate theft. Rental restrictions. Some companies have implemented restrictions on renting to first-time customers or customers from certain regions, though these policies raise concerns about discrimination. Insurance requirements. Higher deposits and more comprehensive insurance requirements aim to deter criminals and cover potential losses. Blockchain registration. Some countries are exploring using blockchain technology for vehicle registration, creating immutable records that would make forging documentation nearly impossible. Enhanced encryption. Vehicle computer systems are being upgraded with stronger encryption to prevent unauthorized reprogramming. When this case first landed on my desk, It looked straightforward. Some rental cars hadn't been returned. But as we dug deeper, we realized we were looking at something much more sophisticated. Building the case required patience and extremely detailed investigative work. The international coordination aspect was both challenging and rewarding. I'd never worked on something that involved so many countries before. The bureaucracy can be frustrating, different legal systems, language barriers, time zones. But when it all came together on Action Day, when we saw suspects being arrested across Europe simultaneously, it was incredible. That's when you realize what's possible when law enforcement works together. A victim's journey. Maria D., a 26-year-old Ukrainian woman recruited by the network, agreed to share her story on condition of anonymity. Her experience illustrates how ordinary people became unwitting participants in the criminal show. I was working as a receptionist in Lviv, barely making enough to pay rent, she explained. A friend told me about this opportunity, travel to Spain, rent a car for a business, earn €800. It seemed legitimate. They showed my website, business registration documents. Everything looked real. Maria was flown to Barcelona, put up in a hotel, and given detailed instructions. They told me exactly what to say at the rental agency, gave me a credit card to use, walked me through everything. I rented a Mercedes V-Class. They said it was for a corporate transportation contract and they needed it in my name for insurance areas. After renting the vehicle, Maria was instructed to meet someone at a specific address. A man I'd never met took the keys and drove away. They paid me the money they promised and flew me back to Ukraine. I thought that was it, a strange but legitimate job. Weeks later, Spanish police contacted Maria. That's when I learned the car had been stolen. I was terrified. I thought I'd be arrested, imprisoned in Spain. The police were actually quite understanding once they realized I'd been tricked. But it was still horrible. Maria ultimately cooperated with investigators, providing testimony about the recruitment process. She received a suspended sentence in Spain, recognizing both her technical guilt and her victimization. I feel angry, used, stupid. These people exploited my financial desperation. I still have nightmares about it. But I'm also grateful police understood I was a victim too. The technical specialist's view. An investigator with German Federal Police, BKA, who specialized in the technical aspects of the case, speaking on condition of anonymity due to operational sensitivities, explained the challenge of tracking the modified vehicles. Modern luxury vehicles are essentially computers on wheels, he explained. They have multiple keep systems, telematics modules, communication systems. The manufacturers designed these to be robust and tamper-resistant. But the criminals had people who really understood vehicle electronics. The processing facilities, discovered in Germany, contained sophisticated equipment. We found specialized store for reprogramming vehicle control modules, professional diagnostic tools that dealerships use, event equipment for manufacturing counterfeit, weighing plates that were almost indistinguishable from genuine ones. The technical specialists noted that some techniques used by the criminals were closely guarded secrets in the automotive industry. These weren't publicly known vulnerabilities. Either they had someone on the inside at a manufacturer, or they'd invested serious resources into reverse engineering vehicle security systems. The prosecutors challenge Elena Martinez, a Spanish prosecutor involved in the case, described the legal complexities of Operation Matador. Prosecuting transnational organized crime is extremely challenging, she explained. Evidence gathered in Ukraine must be admissible in Spanish courts. Witnesses might be in 4 different countries. Financial transactions cross multiple jurisdictions. The role of Eurojust proved crucial. Without the coordination framework Eurojust provided, this prosecution would have been nearly impossible. They helped us navigate different legal systems, ensured evidence was gathered properly, coordinated arrest warrants and extradition requests. Martinez emphasized the importance of the joint investigation team. The G gave us legal mechanisms to share evidence and coordinate prosecutions, that would have been much more difficult through traditional manual legal assistance treaties. It allowed us to build parallel cases in multiple countries based on shared evidence. She also noted the challenge of prosecuting the recruited victims. From a legal standpoint, they commit fraud, they rented vehicles they knew they weren't going to return, but from a justice standpoint, they were exploited. We had to balance accountability with recognition of their victimization. Part 12. The future of vehicle crime, emerging threats. Experts believe Operation Matador exposed methods that will continue to evolve. Several emerging threats, Aryan law enforcement's radar. Keyless theft 2.0. Criminals are developing increasingly sophisticated relay attacks on keyless entry systems, intercepting signals between key fobs and vehicles from greater distances, and with better encryption defeat capabilities. Remote hacking. As vehicles become more connected, with internet connectivity and over-the-air update abilities, they become vulnerable to remote hacking. Security researchers have demonstrated proof-of-concept attacks where vehicles are remotely controlled or disabled. AI-generated documentation. Artificial intelligence is making it easier to generate highly convincing documents, potentially making the document forgery aspect of schemes like Operation Matador even more sophisticated. Autonomous vehicle exploitation. As self-driving capabilities become more common, criminals may find ways to exploit these systems, potentially enabling vehicles to drive themselves to criminal destinations. Cryptocurrency anonymization. While law enforcement is getting better at tracing cryptocurrency, new privacy-focused digital currencies and mixing services continue to emerge, making money laundering easier. Preventive strategies. Law enforcement and industry are developing multi-layered preventive strategies. Enhanced tracking systems. Next-generation vehicle tracking systems use multiple redundant GPS modules, satellite communications, and tamper detection that immediately alerts authorities if tracking is disabled. Biometric integration. Some manufacturers are exploring integrating biometric authentication directly into vehicles, making them inoperable without the authorized driver's fingerprint or facial recognition. Blockchain registration. Several countries are pilot programs using blockchain technology for vehicular registration, creating tamper-proof ownership records. AI-powered monitoring. Artificial intelligence systems can analyze rental patterns, payment methods, and customer behavior to flag high-risk transactions before vehicles are released. International database integration. Efforts are underway to create better integrated international database for vehicle registrations, making it harder to introduce stolen vehicles under false documentation. The legal framework evolution. Operation Matador highlighted both the strengths and weaknesses of Europe's legal framework for combating transnational organized crime. Several legal developments are underway. Enhanced JIT mechanisms. The success of the joint investigation team model is leading to proposals for streamlined JIT establishment procedures and expanded legal authorities for international investigations. Cryptocurrency regulation. The European Union is developing more comprehensive frameworks for cryptocurrency regulation and tracking, making it harder for criminals to use digital currencies for money laundering. Harmonized penalties. Efforts are underway to harmonize penalties for vehicle theft and related crimes across EU member states, eliminating situations where criminals exploit lower penalties in certain countries. Victim protection standards. Recognition of how criminal networks exploit vulnerable people is leading to better legal protections for individuals recruited into criminal schemes. Industry transformation. The rental car industry, particularly the luxury segment, is undergoing significant transformation. Digital verification. Rental companies are implementing comprehensive digital identity verification systems that cross-check multiple databases and use biometric verification. Dynamic risk assessment. AI systems assess each rental transaction in real time, considering factors like customer history, geographic patterns, vehicle type, and payment methods to calculate risk scores. Insurance innovation. New insurance products specifically designed for the rent-to-steal threat are emerging, with premiums tied to the robustness of rental companies' security measures. Industry cooperation. Rental companies are sharing information about suspicious customers and theft patterns through industry associations, creating collective defense against organized theft rings. Geographic tracking zones. Some companies are implementing virtual boundaries, With automatic alerts, vehicles leave permitted areas or enter high-risk regions. Part 13. The geopolitical dimension, criminal networks and conflict. Operation Matador's Ukrainian dimension occurred against the backdrop of broader geopolitical tensions. While the criminal network predated recent conflicts, it illustrated how instability creates opportunities for transnational crime. Displacement, economic hardship, and weakened institutional capacity in conflict-affected regions create a vulnerability that criminal organizations exploit. The recruitment of Ukrainian citizens by the Operation Matador network demonstrated this dynamic. Law enforcement officials note that criminal networks often flourish in the gray zones, created by geopolitical areas where state authority is weak. International cooperation is complicated by political tensions, and traditional law enforcement structures are strained. The Russian dimension. The fact that the high-value target was a Russian national, and that several other arrested individuals were Russian citizens, raised questions about potential state connections or tolerance. However, investigators found no evidence of state sponsorship or protection. Rather, the case illustrated how Russian-speaking transnational criminal networks operate across the former Soviet space, exploiting cultural connections, language commonalities, and familiarity with each other's systems. These networks are opportunistic and profit-driven rather than ideologically motivated. The investigation was complicated by Russia's non-participation in European law enforcement cooperation frameworks. While Ukrainian authorities could arrest the Russian national on their territory, any future repression would face challenges if other network members fled to Russia, which doesn't extradite its citizens. Cross-border crime in an era of tension. Operation Matador succeeded because of robust European law enforcement cooperation. But maintaining such cooperation is increasingly challenged by geopolitical tensions, domestic political pressures, and resource constraints. The investigation required sustained commitment from 6 countries over 18 months. It needed significant resources, personnel, technology, funding at a time when law enforcement budgets faced pressure. It demanded trust between agencies with different priorities and institutional cultures. The success of Operation Matador demonstrates what's possible with sustained cooperation. But it also conclusion. Operation Matador's legacy, what was achieved by any measure. Operation Matador was a significant law enforcement success. Dismantled organization. The coordinated action effectively destroyed a sophisticated criminal network, arresting key leaders and operators across its structure. Justice for victims. While not all stolen vehicles were recovered, the arrests and prosecutions provided some measure of justice for the rental companies, insurers, and individuals affected. Intelligence dividend. The extensive intelligence gathered is being used to combat similar networks across Europe, multiplying the operation's impact. Deterrent effect. The successful prosecution sends a message to other criminal networks that international vehicle theft operations will face serious consequences. Model for cooperation. The operation demonstrated effective methods for international law enforcement cooperation that are being replicated in other investigations. Protected vulnerable people. By exposing the recruitment methods used to exploit vulnerable individuals, the operation may prevent others from being victimized by similar schemes. What remains unfinished? Despite its successes, Operation Matador leaves unfinished business. Incomplete recovery. Most of the stolen vehicles were never recovered, representing permanent losses for their legitimate owners. Market demand persists. As long as lucrative international markets exist for stolen luxury vehicles, criminal networks will continue to supply them. Systemic vulnerabilities remain. The weaknesses in vehicle security, registration systems, and verification process that enabled the network still largely exist. Other networks operating. Operation Matador targeted one network among many engaged in similar activities. The broader problem of luxury vehicle theft persists. Exploitation continues. While this particular recruitment operation was shut down, criminal networks continue to exploit vulnerable people in various forms of organized crime. Lessons for the future. Operation Matador offers several enduring lessons. International crime requires international response. No single country could have defeated this network alone. Success required sustained international cooperation. Patience and thoroughness pay off. The 18-month investigation allowed authorities to understand and target entire network rather than making premature arrests. Follow the money.
Financial investigation proved crucial to understanding the organization's structure and identifying its leadership. Technology is both tool and target. Modern technology enabled both the criminal network and law enforcement's response.
Success requires staying ahead of criminal technological innovation. Address root causes. Preventing future cases requires not just law enforcement, but also addressing economic vulnerabilities that criminal networks exploit. Judicial cooperation matters. The legal frameworks provided by Eurojust and the Joint Investigation Team were as important as operational police cooperation. The ongoing battle. Operation Matador represents a significant victory in an ongoing battle. Transnational organized crime continuously evolves, finding new vulnerabilities to exploit and adapting to law enforcement countermeasures. Each successful operation provides intelligence and tactics that improve future responses. But criminals also learn and adapt. The luxury vehicle theft problem won't be solved by any single operation, no matter how successful. It requires a commitment to international law enforcement cooperation, technological security improvements, legal framework development, industry best practices, addressing socioeconomic vulnerabilities, public awareness and education. Final reflections. On a sunny morning in May 2024, hundreds of law enforcement officers across Europe moved simultaneously against a sophisticated criminal network. The operation they conducted, Operation Matador, represented months of painstaking investigation, unprecedented international cooperation, and careful planning. The arrests that day were not the end of the story, but rather a crucial chapter in an ongoing struggle against transnational organized crime. The prosecutions that followed would seek to hold accountable those who orchestrated the theft of millions of euros worth of vehicles and exploited vulnerable people in the process. For the rental companies that lost vehicles, Operation Matador provided some closure, though not full recovery. For the individuals recruited and exploited by the network, it brought complicated justice recognition of their victimization, but also accountability for their actions. For the investigators who spent 18 months building the case, it validated their patience and thoroughness. Perhaps most importantly, Operation Matador demonstrated that international borders need not be barriers to justice. When law enforcement agencies work together, share intelligence, coordinate operations, and commit to sustained cooperation, even sophisticated transnational criminal networks can be defeated. As one of the Europol coordinators noted in the operation's aftermath, criminals think internationally. They didn't respect borders, they exploit differences between legal systems. They move people and goods across countries with ease. If we're going to stop them, we have to think and act internationally too. Operation Matador proved we can do exactly that. The cars stolen by the network may have rolled across European roads from Spain to Lithuania, from rental lots to processing facilities to export destinations. But the wheels of justice, though they turned slowly, turned thorough. And in the end, they rolled over a criminal network that thought it could operate with impunity across Europe's borders. Operation Matador's message is clear. In an interconnected world, international crime will face international justice. The luxury car thieves learned this lesson the hard way, and other criminal networks would do well to take note. Epilogue. 1 year later, by May 2025, 1 year after Action Day, the prosecutions stemming from Operation Matador were still proceeding through various European court systems. Several defendants had been convicted and were serving sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. Others awaited trial or had trials in progress. Vehicle theft rates for luxury rentals in Spain and France showed a modest decline, though whether this was directly attributable to Operation Matador or part of broader trends was difficult to determine. Law enforcement officials remained cautious, knowing that criminal networks adapt quickly. The intelligence gathered during Operation Matador continued to yield results. In March 2025, Romanian authorities used patterns identified in the Operation Matador intelligence package to disrupt another vehicle theft network before it could become fully operational. The rental industry's enhanced security measures, while adding cost and complexity, appeared to be having some deterrent effect. Several rental companies reported that the combination of enhanced verification, real-time tracking, and increased cooperation with law enforcement had reduced their theft losses. For the investigators who worked Operation Matador, life had largely returned to normal. New cases, new investigations, new criminals to pursue. But occasionally, when they crossed paths at international conferences or training sessions, they would share a knowing look, remembering the morning when they moved simultaneously across a continent against a criminal network that had thought itself untouchable. And in the evidence rooms of police stations across Europe, seized documents, equipment, and vehicles remained stored. Silent testimony to one of the most successful international operations against luxury vehicle theft that Europe had ever seen. The fight against transnational organized crime continues, but Operation Matador stands as proof that when law enforcement agencies work together with patience, determination, and international cooperation, justice can cross any border. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned and subscribe to Real Criminal Cases podcast. New videos about international police operations will be posted every week.